Hi everybody, welcome back to Marie's Kitchen. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're talking about how to fix a dry pie crust. This is one of the most common questions that I get both in pie making classes and on this channel, so I'm really excited to work through it with you. Let's get started. Okay, now this dough is one that I made earlier that I purposefully used not enough water. So it is going to be too dry, so we're going to have to work through that issue. And hopefully that'll answer most of your questions. If you can see up close this pie crust, you can see sort of this dry patches all the way throughout. Even after being refrigerated for several hours, it didn't hydrate. So there wasn't enough water in there to hydrate all that flour. Now by comparison, let me just show you, this is the crust we made earlier. And you can see hopefully you can see, there really aren't any dry patches in here. It looks more like a dough. So this is what you're going for, just to compare the two. Okay, so the first thing I like to do before I roll out a pie crust is just kind of press the dough while it's in here. Just press it a little bit, because usually when you get it right out of the refrigerator, it's pretty hard. And if it's too hard to roll out, if it's kind of like rock solid cold, then you won't be able to roll it out. And you'll need to let it sit for a minute and warm up just a touch. Now, just taking it out of the press and seal, you can already see this is going to be a problematic crust. We got dry cracks everywhere. You can see it's already falling into pieces here. And your crust may even be worse. It may be like you open that and there's a big dry patch and it just kind of falls out onto your surface. That's okay. Again, don't worry. Let's start like this. First thing we'll do is just kind of press this into a disc to see what we're working with. And now we see a lot of cracks sticking to me, coming off. Okay, so what we're gonna do, don't worry, remember, deep breaths. What we'll do is just put my fingers in some cold water, and I'm just gonna drizzle in a little bit of water in the dry patches. I use my fingers because it's such an easy way to dab just a little bit on. You don't wanna dab a lot on, or you're gonna end up with a really kind of sticky, messy mess. You don't want a messy mess. We'll flip it over and add a little more where you see some bigger cracks. I'm gonna do surgery on it, huh? So some big dry cracks in here. We'll just add a little water in there. Are you worried? Don't worry. You make it as bad as it can be. So you'll learn not to worry, anything is fixable. Okay, so now we're gonna just start to bring this back together. Same thing, if you've got a big pile of crumbs over here, you can just drizzle a little water in it and bring it back together. Press that together. Let me get my extra flour here for rolling it out. You always need a little extra flour. Put some on your hands, a little on the board. You don't want this to be absorbing a lot more flour at this point because it's already got a little too much. So, but you can still put some on your hands or down here if it's getting kind of sticky. I know someone commented, well, my pie crust is dry, but it's also sticky. How is that even possible, right? It is. You can have a dry and sticky crust. So again, I'm just kind of pressing it together. We're not kneading the dough, we're not working anything. We're just bringing it together, checking to see how we're doing. It's already starting to look a little better, right? So we're on the right track. And that was just by drizzling in water and sort of pressing it together, letting that flour absorb that extra water. You can dot in a little bit more if you see some cracks. So we've still got some cracks, but it's looking like it's going to be easier to work with here. dot in a little more water with our cracks. doing? Okay, I think we're looking good. Still got some cracks, but you know, a few cracks are okay. So this would be a good time to wrap it back up in some saran wrap and pop it in the refrigerator to let it really absorb and chill again, and just let that gluten relax again since we've been moving it around a little bit. But I think I'm ready to go ahead and roll it out. So let's see how we do. Now we'll do a little flour here on the Silpat mat. A little flour on my rolling pin. And then we'll roll and give that a turn. I always roll and turn because number one, it will help prevent your pie crust from sticking to whatever surface you're rolling on. And the other reason is because it will help keep your pie crust in a nice round circle as you're rolling it out. Just helps keep everything even. So I still see some cracks in this crust, and it's totally fine. It looks great, it's holding together. A few cracks don't bother me. Give it a turn. We'll keep rolling. Little flour on my rolling pin here. And turn. I can see all the little pieces of butter in there, so it looks like it's going to be a nice flaky crust. A little extra there. A little sticky on top, so a little flour. Okay, this is looking good. Let me grab my pie plate and we'll go ahead and measure and see how we're doing on size. Okay, here's our pie plate. It's a 9-inch Pyrex pie plate. I'm gonna set it down and measure. Generally you want about 2 inches around the outside so you can have a nice thick crust. I think it looks like we only have about 1.5 right now, so I'm gonna roll it out just a little bit more. There we go, that feels better. Looks good. Let's take a look. Yes, that looks good. We've got a nice wide edge around the edge of the pie plate. Now, what we'll do is fold this in half and then lift that up, put that right in the center where it says the word Pyrex, and then open that up. And there we have our pie crust in our pie plate. And this is the poor little pie crust that was so dry we didn't think it was going to work, and now here it is, just looking gorgeous. Look at all that butter in there. It's so nicely fits, it's soft, beautiful crust. I'm going to add just a little dab of water in that dry spot there. And if your crust happens to crack as you're putting it into the pie plate, just add some water and press it together with your fingers. Just seal it up. You'd be surprised, you'll never see the patch later on. It just disappears. Now for the edge, we'll just take this pie crust and tuck it under itself and rest it on the lip of the pie plate right there. So tuck it under itself, rest it on the lip of the pie plate. Go all the way around. If you feel a little bit of dryness there, you can just dab a little water in if you like. Still kind of monitoring how dry our crust is as we go. And we'll fold that under itself, keep going around. This feels like kind of a lot of crust here, so I'm going to pinch off just a little bit so it's not so bulky, and then keep going around. I've had several of you send me pictures of the most beautiful pies and pie crusts, and I am so thrilled. It absolutely makes my day. If y'all send more of those, I will start to include those in my videos so everybody can see how well everyone's doing and the progress everyone's making. So send me your photos and whatever name you'd like me to use, and I will start including those in some of my videos. because I'm just so thrilled. And it's so inspiring to see people who have never made a pie crust turning out these gorgeous apple pies. So proud of you guys. Okay, so now we have our pie crust in our pie plate. And we'll quickly make a fluted edge here. To do that, I just use my knuckle and 2 fingers, or you can use your finger and 2 fingers, or your thumb. If you have a filling in, it's hard to work around. So you can just do like this. Thumb works fine. I like to have kind of fatter fluted edge. Okay, now I just pull these back just a tad, and that really helps them stay up on the edge when it's baking. And that is a gorgeous pie crust. It started out definitely too dry, so you saw it start to finish, how to fix a dry pie crust. All right, now we will take our Glad press and seal, so loud, and carefully wrap our pie crust in that. Actually, I'll double wrap it since it's going in the freezer. Now what I like to do is put this in the freezer, just like this, and then it's ready to use whenever you need it. When you're ready to use it, whether it's for a pecan pie or a blind bake, cream pie, you can pull this out of the freezer, let it sit on your countertop while the oven preheats, so maybe about 10 minutes, put it on a baking sheet and bake it straight from frozen. You do not need to defrost it. You can take some of the chill out of the pie plate by setting on your counter, like I said, for about 10 minutes before you bake it. But generally you do not need to thaw the crust, and you really shouldn't, because having a frozen crust will really help your pie crust hold its shape when it bakes. So if you've had problems with your crust either kind of melting down or sinking down, that's probably because your oven was not hot enough, so it was maybe a little bit just kind of a warm oven, and maybe your crust wasn't cold enough. So you're having just like a warm crust go into a warm oven, and that is a recipe for a sort of melting, sagging crust. Before I put this in the freezer, one question I always get is, what time and temperature do I bake this pie crust? And that depends on what pie you're making. If you're making an apple pie, it's going to be totally different from pecan pie. If you're making a cream pie, it's totally different from a pumpkin pie. So you really do have to look at the recipe, whether it's mine or someone else's, about how to bake the pie crust and the filling. Do they bake together? Do they cook separately? You need to look at that and follow those instructions. I can't give you any one number for baking a pie crust without knowing what pie you're baking. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm gonna pop this in the freezer. Oh, and you can leave it in the freezer for up to 2 to 3 months. So if you wanna make your pie crust for Thanksgiving now, it's the beginning of November, you can make them now and leave them in the freezer until you're ready to use them. Again, you don't need to thaw them, just pull them out and use them. So that's a great make-ahead option. Otherwise, you can form it into the disc the way we did earlier, wrapped in press and seal. You can put that in the freezer for 2 to 3 months. So lots of make-ahead options, and I'll do a separate video on that. All right, this goes in the freezer. Thanks so much for joining us on Marie's Kitchen. Today we went over why your pie crust might be dry and then how to fix it if it is. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, leave me a comment and let me know, or give me a thumbs up. And also, if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe. I've got lots more videos coming up and I don't want you to miss any of them. If you have any other questions about pies, just leave those below. I really do love troubleshooting, so I'd love to help you. My goal is to give you some really easy recipes that turn out great every time, so you can build some confidence in the kitchen and feel really inspired to share good food with people that you love. From my kitchen to yours, thank you.